Welcome everyone to the Newburyport Literary Festival. My name is Jennifer Entwistle and I am the co-director of the festival. And this is our 16th year of bringing authors and readers together. And it's our biggest year yet. We've got over 100 panelists speaking this weekend. We've had a really amazing day today. So many events, so much great feedback. It's really been a great virtual session today. And we get to do it again tomorrow. We've got a full lineup, 3 tracks worth of Zoom events tomorrow. So if this is the first event you're coming to this weekend, I hope you'll check out tomorrow's schedule and sign up for some more. And if you've already been with us, thank you. And we'll see you tomorrow. So we are using Zoom webinar, and that means that you'll be able to see the panelists, but we cannot see or hear you. So please utilize the chat so that you can join in the discussion over there. If you do have a question for any of the authors, please put it in the Q&A button that's at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We have a full agenda and we're not sure if we're going to get to questions, but we're going to do our best. So please put them there so that if we can work them in, they'll be readily available. And finally, I do want to mention that today is Independent Bookstore Day. So we encourage you to buy all of your festival books at an independent bookstore. We partner with 2 of them here at the festival, Jabberwocky Bookshop in Newburyport and the Bookshop of Beverly Farms. So once we get started, I will put links to both of those bookstores in the chat for you. Of course, if you have a favorite bookstore, we encourage you to support them and buy your books locally as well. Now let me introduce, we have Jennifer Haupt. Her debut novel, In the Shadow of 10,000 Hills, was awarded the Forward Review's Bronze Indie Award for historical fiction. She's also the editor of the best-selling anthology, Alone Together, Stories of Love, Grief, and Comfort in the Time of COVID-19. Her second novel will be published in March of 2022. Ooh. And we have Robin Kall. She has blended her passion for a good book and natural curiosity to create the Reading with Robin show, where she speaks with authors, readers, and literacy adjacent professionals on a weekly basis. The show is the first of its kind, giving readers unprecedented access to the authors that they love. And Robin continues to cultivate this community through online events and interviews. She lives in Rhode Island with her family. So welcome and cheers. Jen and Robin.
To the Jen.
Thanks for inviting us, Jen. This is really, really wonderful.
Like I said, being at a cocktail party is just, you know, the conversation and the seeing everybody and everyone's dressed, and isn't this fun? Thank you.
It's great, and I can wear sweats.
I do have a fear of like what it is going to be like to actually be fully dressed at some level, but I think we'll manage. But you're cozy and comfy, so that's all that matters.
I'm very cozy and comfy.
Oh my God, I can't believe this book came out. Here's my beloved copy in August or September. September,
and the first event we did was for, I want to say Independent Bookstore Day was like in September last year, because
yeah,
for Independent Bookstore Day for the book launch.
Yes.
And now this is our last Alone Together event, also on Independent Bookstore Day.
Bringing it full circle.
Yeah, so I hope I don't cry.
Oh, you know, you can cry if you want to. We all have done lots of crying. There's been lots of crying on camera. You know, nothing brings out emotion like books and storytellers. So it just might happen again. I had Adriana Trigiani on last week, and we talked about Reunion Beach and Dorothea Benton Frank, and there were tears. And so
well, I might have tears listening to some of our authors read tonight.
I have a feeling that absolutely may happen. And you know, we kicked off this event together. I think it was August. I think it was a pre-event.
Yeah.
So and I was just flipping through the book again to, you know, to make sure I had everybody, you know, who's speaking tonight easily marked. And I went through all of these authors and these stories that I've already read, but just remembering some of them. And this was just incredible. I know you called it your little monster. Is that what it was?
Lovely monster.
Lovely monster. Am I confusing you with Lady Gaga somehow? I don't know.
Yeah,
But like really to have accomplished this and brought the community together in such a meaningful way. You know, there's good that came from that, certainly, but that was such a productive project, certainly.
Well, and we all came together to help independent bookstores and
Right.
raise money. And so just this past year, my publisher announced that we raised $40,000,
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Binc, and IPG, our book distributor, contributed $20,000 of that money. So it was
That's
really,
amazing, Jennifer. I didn't have any idea how much. When I knew it to Binc, but congratulations! What a team effort.
yeah, it makes me feel really good. And hopefully we will continue to raise money as we continue to sell books, because, you know, even though I want to say the pandemic is like coming to maybe,
There's room for more book sales. Let's just say that.
but we're going to call it a historical perspective in our most optimistic moments.
I love that. Who doesn't want to look back? I mean,
Yeah.
we don't want to look back. We want it in the rear view. So you
Well,
can.
I want to ask you though, Robin, how you have stayed connected with readers during the pandemic, because you are such a book person and an author person, and like you're like the hub at the spoke, the hub, and you know, the authors and readers are the spokes, you know what I mean? And so,
I do. Somehow there's traveling happening.
yeah, so tell me about that.
You
before we
know,
get into our authors.
thanks, Jennifer. And you know, Benny just came in with his ball, so hopefully he understands that Mama's chatting. Oh, he is. You know, everybody has gotten used to this pattern, like, you know, we're all Zooming and whatever, and we're on Instagram lives, and that's what I did. You know, in March, when we knew we were going to not be doing these live events and books were coming out and all of that, I just thought, let me use this platform and keep myself busy and a little bit sane and just bury myself in books. I wasn't able to certainly read all of them, and in fact couldn't read very much maybe until June or so. And it was kind of freeing to be able to say, hey, yeah, I'll have you on, and it was like boom, boom, boom. Your books just came out. Tell us about your book. You know, it was just an insane amount of interviews. And I kept moving around the house with my step and repeat, trying to get good Wi-Fi. And finally, this is the best space of all. Goldilocks figured that out. And I just added in the Instagram lives and called it Tell Me About Your Book, and chat with authors daily and sometimes twice daily, and every once in a while 3 times if I just can't help myself. And the readers are there, the readers that would come to the events, the readers that were online, you know, part of the Reading with Robin community. And we've moved many of them successfully over to Instagram with, you know, without too much trouble, and still doing what I do, but online and more. And truly, you know, it's been so, I know it's been helpful. We've raised money for No Kid Hungry, for the Rhode Island Food Bank, for other charities, certainly the breast cancer charities that I support with my fall event. But you know, in the giving, there's certainly much receiving, and staying connected to my friends and my authors who are my friends, and, you know, just doing what I do and having some sort of order to the day and a reason to put on lipstick. It's been very fulfilling. If not pants, at least lipstick.
I that's one thing I do love that's been happening over the past year, is the way we've all been building community online. And I wonder how that's going to change once we can have events in person again. But it's exciting, just the thought of it. I mean, the thought of like going on book tour next spring when my next book comes out.
Yes. What are we going to do, Jennifer? It's going to be so exciting. I think, and greetings to Rhode Island from Rhode Island. I think there'll certainly be everyone saying, you know, hybrid's the new pivot, apparently. So this won't be going away. You know, whoever would like to be doing it, there are so many people that even in times of in-person events aren't able to get to them, can't, the authors aren't coming near enough by. So this is just such a wonderful way to have more, you know, more books. And I think book sales were up, right, for this past year in general.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yay, it's something, all the cheerleading and the passion and the book sharing is working. So that, you know, that's my data anyway.
Well, while we have this opportunity, I know one thing we're going to do tonight is toast our favorite independent book.
I just did mine too fast. I'm just so parched, Jennifer. I'm parched.
Well, if you can take another sip and toast your favorite.
I will toast College Hill Bookstore on Thayer Street in Providence. We do all of our in-person events with the help and support of College Hill and Tova. Tova, I don't want to mess up last name, Beiser. It's been so long, like I said, I'm afraid to be out in public, but cheers to College Hill Bookstore on this Independent Bookstore Day.
Cheers. And I'm raising my glass of Topo Chico to Elliott Bookstore in Seattle, which is more than a bookstore. It's a community builder. It's a community hub. And, you know, I'm just so excited to get back into bookstores and meet my friends there and, you know, have conversations about books and see authors there. So here's to all of my booksellers. And
cheers to, yeah, spring of 22. That's exciting.
It is. It is. And I know Devi Laskar, one of our authors tonight, has a book coming out next spring. So that'll be fun to actually meet her in person. In fact, I know Devi's waiting in the wings, and Devi and January, Gill O'Neil are our first authors. And I think I'm going to go ahead and introduce them before they come on so that we have a chance to, you know, to talk more. So Devi Laskar is the author of The Atlas of Reds and Blues, the winner of the 7th annual Crooks Corner Book Prize for Best Debut Novel Set in the South, and winner of the 2020 Asian Pacific American Award for Literature. Her second novel, Circa, will be published in spring 2022 by Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. A native of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Devi now lives in California with her family. And January, here's Devi. Hi, Devi.
Yes, back again.
January Gill O'Neil will also be joining us soon. She'll be popping in. She's an associate professor at Salem State University and the author of Rewildling, Misery Islands, and Underlife, all published by Cavan Carey Press. She served as the executive director of the Massachusetts Poetry Festival and currently serves on the boards of AWP, Mass Poetry, and Montserrat College of Art. The recipient of fellowships from the Massachusetts Cultural Council, Cave Canem, and the Barbara Deming Memorial Fund. January was the 2019-2020 John and Renee Grisham Writer in Residency recipient at the University of Mississippi, Oxford. She lives with her 2 kids in Beverly, Mass, about 8 miles from where this literary festival usually takes place. So January will also be dropping in soon.
She's here. She said she's here. Can we just not see her?
Oh.
She said, I'm here.
Well, maybe her video is not on.
Maybe she joined as a attendee and not as a panelist.
Oh,
maybe. Okay, so Jen Entwistle's on it.
Okay.
She's on it.
Okay, well, let's start with Devi.
Okay.
And I'll hand it to
Devi,
you.
I'm so excited. Please be in touch when your spring book is out. I'm already writing down titles for 2022. I'm already
thank you.
An
Thank
online
you.
event. So nice to meet you and
So-
congratulations. You're welcome. And I'm glad to know we have time because you're going to be reading. But the thing that is always interesting to me, especially with anthologies and when you're asked to submit a piece, is what were you thinking about and what is, you know, where did this piece come from?
Oh, such a good question. Yeah, Jennifer asked me, we have never met in person, but I think someone introduced us. And so I was just thinking about how as a writer, I was, my paperback tour was canceled and how, you know, we were all alone and still trying to be creative. My family, for example, is on the East Coast and I live in California now. So I, you know, I was there was so much misinformation at the beginning. I was just trying to make a record, I guess, of what I knew and what I didn't know. I used to be a reporter a really long time ago. And so I was just trying to sort of keep a record of what was going on at the time that I wrote this. And so that's sort of where it came from.
And when you reread it now, I mean, does it sort of put you back in that time when you think about what we knew and what we didn't know? And I've had conversations with friends about how much confusion there was, rightly so, and then also, unnecessarily so. But what does it feel like to reread the piece, at this time?
It's so interesting to me that it feels like a piece from last year because of what we now know, right?
Mhm.
And so that's actually very interesting to me because it definitely feels like 2020. Whereas usually I can't read one of my things and be like, oh, I wonder when I wrote this. And I'm like, oh, I know exactly when I wrote this, right?
Stamped indelibly upon our site.
Yes.
Right? Oh, I wrote this in 2020. There she is. Hi.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Oh, continue. I was listening.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, so Debbie's going to read, and then, right, that's what we're gonna do. Okay, we're staying on track, right? Somebody's keeping
Right.
time.
Right. So I'm going to skip around because some of this is kind of old and it doesn't quite fit anymore. But I'll start at the beginning, but I'm going to skip around, I think, to the end. State of the art, State of the Union. You are red-cheeked, raging at the TV, warning for all those who have died needlessly. You are also the red sirens of the ambulances that frequent your California streets in this age of infection and disease. You are a want, the wanting to reach a distant shore, to swim in a red sea, so named before it inevitably dies. You are a want, a return to some semblance of normalcy. You want to visit your family living on the other side of the country in a state where the lawmakers do not believe in science. You are a decades-old memory, the red of India, your red gold bridal sari glistening in the sun. You are wanted, unwanted. In this election season, in this dim understanding of virus without vaccine, and the semantics between sheltering in place and staying at home, you offer what you can. Sometimes you write poems. Poetry in wartime is a luxury. Poetry in wartime is a necessity. Sometimes you take photographs. You try to document what's still visible. Sometimes you still dream. Sometimes you say you are a writer. Sometimes you say you are a poet. Sometimes you say you have not the faintest clue what you are today. You try to call your family and warn them. You tell them to listen to your governor, since their governor is more concerned about money. Another day with electronic messages scrolling across your screen in red and black, warning you not to go out unless necessary. Another tally mark of self-quarantine. Another short walk with camera in hand, mask and sunglasses on face, hoping to see through the lens darkly what you can point at, shoot. You have not observed a cardinal in many days, but have noticed the red ants taking up residence in the garage. In the evenings, the red cedars appear alight under the setting sun. There is red rust along the mouth of the bathtub drain, a hawk spiraling toward a red siskin perched on a branch, a red spider glistening in the light of a star, uncorked Cabernet going to vinegar, and a doctor on cable news speaking of red blood cell counts as you polish the pair of new pennies in your pocket. You still want to write. You still want to finish the story you've been toiling over for years. Yet you are distracted by the numbers you see on TV, the death tolls, the number of those infected, the shortages of personal protective equipment and hospital beds and breathing apparatuses, the shortages of food in many corners of the American landscape, the lines of cars that stretch toward infinity outside food banks. You used to be a reporter. You remain grateful other reporters still ask tough questions, still seek the truth, especially now. You want to know, but sometimes you can't bear it. And I'm gonna move a little. As a poet, you still wonder how to rhyme words like dangerous and marathon, month, opus, orange, pint, purple, silver, wolf. Then you open a book and find a solution, taking a slant on the situation, a twist of the tongue. Suddenly orange can hang with boring, door hinge, forage, lozenge, and porridge. You are almost giddy for a moment. You can almost forget about the diseased American body when you are lost in words. The people in charge fancy themselves as knowledgeable, trustworthy, yet they want to drown the American body in disinfectant and ultraviolet light, and they want to drown out the voices of the scientists begging them to stop their conjecture. What appears on the magic landscape of the computer, a recipe for bitter orange soup, panorama shots of fruit groves and dairy farms as the voiceover talks about food shortages, an ocean shoreline besieged by tourists in defiance of a governor's order to stay indoors. When you live in the midst of a pandemic, every waking hour is plagued with thoughts of worst case scenarios, what ifs, and contingency plans. What if you get sick and die? What if your children or your ailing parents or your loved ones are alone? I think I'll stop there.
Thank you, Devi. Wow, that was like really being in, like, I was so in my thoughts of exactly those, so many of those things, and wow.
It's funny how you said it was such a piece for 2020, and yet it's also a piece for now, you know, and it feels very almost cyclical. And yeah, it's still so beautiful. Thank you so much, Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And
Thank
now
you.
we're going to move on to January. Welcome, January. Thank you for
Hi.
joining us. I love
Hi.
the yellow chair.
Yeah.
And I love the painting above you, which we can't see all of it though.
Let me pan up.
Ah,
Yeah, it's
wow.
not. Yeah, I was in Nigeria, of all places. I was teaching, and in one of the art shows that we were at, this was hanging, and a good friend of mine bought it for me. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
awesome.
it's definitely pre-pandemic travel.
Right? I know, just even saying that and imagining, like, when, you know, when you were in Nigeria, and like just the way, the ease with which we would talk about those things.
Right.
Now it's also, you know, aspirational and hopeful, I hope, but I hope it's, I'm with writers, I hope it's hopeful. Nothing quite like that, but I'm so glad you showed it to us, because I could see most of it. So yes. Wait, did you do the intro yet, Jen?
I did your intro before you came on.
That's it. That's what I thought. Okay. I'm just like, I'm in 2020. I'm looking at artwork. It's, you know, I'm at my first cocktail party in a long time. They've let me out. It's a lot.
January's piece, I think, was for me one of the most optimistic. I mean, and so because I didn't want the book to be all just like doom and gloom, even though that's how we were all feeling back in March and April, and you know, and so that's why I so loved January's piece. It was so just gorgeously optimistic without being gooey, you know.
Well, thanks. I just want to say to Debbie, that was a wonderful reading, and I loved your piece, and it was important to me during this time. So thank you. I've actually taught that and a few others. I teach at Salem State, and so I've got my dog-eared copy, and I was able to refer to a few pieces during the last 2 semesters. So the piece I wrote, Glitter Road, I'll just tell you a little backstory quickly. So I was I won a fellowship and I was in Mississippi, and I brought the kids down. I was teaching at the University of Mississippi in Oxford. And, you know, I was there, you know, just like everybody else, is sort of doing their thing and doing a little writing and exploring the landscape. And then the pandemic hit. And so, you know, the last 2 months of the fellowship, you know, we were, you know, isolated just like everyone else, but we were isolated and not in our community. I mean, we were developing a community. So the place we stayed was on the edge of town. It wasn't easy. It wasn't walkable. We couldn't walk really anywhere. So it felt isolated. So in a weird way, it kind of primed us for being back here. And so the whole experience of like being apart from everybody, we were kind of used to it because that's what it was like in Mississippi. It was great there, but it was still that feeling of getting to know people. And this particular poem was the last one I wrote in Mississippi, and it probably happened the last, you know, within the last few weeks that we were there. And it literally was about, you know, maybe I'll, is it okay? Can I read? I'll read it and then I'll talk about it a little bit.
Yep, that's a great idea.
Relatively short piece. Glitter Road. I'll take my miracles however they appear these days. A salamander poking its head above the bricks, the shocking blue overcoat of the season's first bluebird, a spider web unbroken. At the corner of Molly Ball and McElroy, I saw a thick trail of glitter in the curve of the right turn lane. Fuchsia, heavy shimmer refracting the noonday sun as if laying flat a rainbow's extended hue. Not paint or blood or a parade shedding its cheer. It's the faded streak of eyeshadow as it trails into flecks, then disappears. I think of cars passing through this moment, their undercarriages aglow with possibility. Hard not to feel good riding a glistening wave, my tires now bespeckled with a purple sheen that's tough to rid or wash away, the road ahead made beautiful by this temporary shine.
Wow.
And so it, you know, I'm pretty straightforward observational writer. So there literally was this big purple streak in the middle of the road. It turns out like I don't know, the water department, it was dye from the water department and they use it for, you know, checking the currents and, you know, water systems. But, you know, it was just really like a beautiful, odd moment. And I guess I was open to seeing it and putting it down on paper. So, you know, I'm thrilled it found a home, Jen, in the anthology. And I'm just happy to be among everyone else. And, you know, it's such great work. You did a nice job pulling it together.
Perfect, because even though it was a truly crappy year, we all found those moments when we saw these glittering moments of hope, and it's like you needed those, and you needed to just pull them in and you know, just let them sink in. Otherwise, we were, you know. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
those,
looking for maybe another anthology. Part 2.
hi. Part 2. Yeah, part 2, like just because it's fun to do, not because it's
Coming out of it, you know.
exactly.
Yeah,
Jen, you're up for another anthology, aren't you?
Sure. I don't know if my publisher is. But,
You know, like, yeah, it could be the PS or whatever. I don't know.
yeah. Post pandemic. Are we being too optimistic? I don't know.
If not us, then who?
Yeah, exactly. We've just been joined by Scott James,
Hey, Scott.
who's
Hey,
from San Francisco. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to meet Reading with Robin from
Oh.
Rhode Island, where my new book is set. So
Oh my God, that's so cool. Did I
Yeah.
know that? I don't think I knew that.
it's a nonfiction book about the station nightclub fire. So getting
yeah.
some attention back there. So
Wow. Yes. No, of course. I mean, that was, yeah, a defining moment in Rhode Island forever.
sure, certainly.
Yeah.
Before
Yeah.
we start with Scott, and Dani Shapiro is also going to be joining us, I just want to give Devi and January, an opportunity to raise a glass and toast their favorite local indie bookstores, since this is Independent Bookstore Day. Debbie, let's start with you.
I would like to raise a glass to Books Inc. in Mountain View on Castro Street. They have been very kind to me since Atlas came out. So here's to them, and let's support our independent bookstores.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And I would like to raise a glass for two bookstores. I'm going to sneak them in. Square Books in Oxford, Mississippi. They are a lifeline. And I still order books from there, but I also order from Copper Dog Books, which is in Beverly, which is only a few miles from Newburyport, which also has some great bookstores there. So to the independents.
Cheers.
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 Thank you so much, Debbie and January. You're welcome to stay on, or you're welcome to turn off your video and just be in the background, and whichever you like. And I am going to introduce Scott, and Dani will hopefully be popping in soon.
She's here.
He's there.
She's
Oh.
here.
There she is. Hey, Dani.
Hey, Dani.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Dani. How
You
are you?
scared, you scared me, Jen.
I'm like, I think I'm seeing Dani,
Yeah.
but like,
Like,
yeah.
What?
There we go. I just had my Zoom on something weird. It's good to see you. So I'm going to introduce Scott and Dani. When the pandemic hit, Scott James was at his home in San Francisco. He was finishing his latest book, Trial by Fire. It's a new investigation into the station nightclub fire in Rhode Island. And that book is now out and getting a lot of good attention, rightly so. Scott is a longtime journalist whose work has appeared in the New York Times since 2009, and he has 3 Emmy Awards for his work in television news in New England. He's also the author of 2 best-selling novels. Welcome, Scott. And
Thank you,
Dani
Debbie.
Shapiro is the author of the instant New York Times best-selling memoir, Inheritance. Her other books include the memoirs Hourglass, Still Writing, Devotion, and Slow Motion, and 5 novels, including Black and White and Family History. Dani is also the host of an original podcast, Family Secrets, an iTunes Top 10 podcast. The series features stories from guests who, like Dani, have uncovered life-altering and long-hidden secrets from their family's past. She lives with her family in Litchfield County, Connecticut. Welcome, Dani, and it's really nice to see both of you. We're going to start with Robin's going to ask some questions of Scott and do a little reading, and then we'll move on to Dani.
So nice to see you, Scott. And
Nice to see
again,
you.
the Rhode Island connections are endless. It just seems that, yeah, sometimes I'm hosting an author and I'm reading their book, and there's some, reference somewhere, and I get, especially as a New Yorker originally, extra excited somehow. So it's great.
Well,
to
look, back in my TV news days, I ran Channel 6, which you have, you can still watch to this day, and started a investigative program called You Paid For It.
Oh, that was you?
25 years ago, and it's still going.
I
Which is
know
a great
that.
tribute to Rhode Island corruption that
And
they've
we
never run
paid
out of
for
stories.
it. Oh yeah, we paid for it. Thanks for that. But yes, I didn't know that was yours. Of course I know that. You
Long
paid
time
for it.
ago.
That's so cool. Well, it's such a treat to get to do this together tonight. And you're in San Francisco, and I'm like, of course, looking. Are those books behind you? In
They
color?
are books, and they're arranged by color, which
thought so.
you'd think would be confusing, but when it's your own bookshelf, it's kind of magical to kind of just wander through it and see things by color rather than some other systems. You have to hunt for a book, and that's when you see all the other great books that you love.
Yeah, and you think, because I know when I'm looking for a book, I'm thinking, what does it look like? And
Right.
so you would think color, but I was thinking, I think I'm imagining that they're color coded, and there it is. The snooping on Zoom has been a lot of fun.
That's true.
I have to say that's been one of my favorites. And so your piece is Ghost Town.
Yes.
And so we've been asking, where the piece comes from, what was the, what were you thinking while you were putting this together? And then I'm not sure, Jennifer, are we reading, is there time to read the whole piece, or are we skipping around?
Yeah, Scott, if you could read your piece, that would
Yeah,
be
no, I mean, look, the setup for this is pretty easy. I mean, I live in a very big city. that's filled with a lot of people doing a lot of things. And then all of a sudden, it was not. And so I write about that. So Ghost Town. I wasn't sure what to expect as we drove onto the Stanford University campus. The university had been shuttered for weeks, with students sent home and classes moved online as California sheltered in place. But not everyone could go home. For some, home was not a safe haven from the pandemic. The virus raged in their countries and borders were sealed. Others came from poverty or housing instability where remote learning was impossible. And there were students from nations embattled with the Trump administration for whom going back meant they'd never return. Those left behind were scattered across campus, isolated in dorm rooms or off-campus housing. They could not shelter with loved ones, but we could make a gesture of home. My husband, Jerry, teaches computer science at Stanford, and when his class went virtual, it also became enormous. It was not unusual for a lecturer to have 150 students or more in a quarter, but in the switch to online learning, the university eliminated grades and made classes pass-fail. Suddenly, the stakes seemed lower for a notoriously demanding course, and enrollment for Jerry's class surged to more than 500. With so many students, it was inevitable that Jerry would have at least some of the left behinds. Eventually, he determined that 15 of his students were stuck at school. In 24 years of teaching, he'd never been in a situation where he did not meet any of his students. So one day, in between coding assignments and Zoom office hours, he computed a solution: banana bread. He decided to bake homemade banana bread and deliver the loaves to the stranded. They'd share a few moments of socially distanced FaceTime, and in a small way, he closed some of the chasm inflicted by the virus. As we drove through the maze of narrow tree-strewn roads to our first stop, a handful of joggers, walkers, and cyclists peppered the school's paths. Among them were small children, some on tricycles. That's a sophomore, Jerry joked. I'd forgotten that faculty, graduate students, and their families lived here too. So when they were ordered home, they also stayed. In addition to the banana bread, we brought a Goodwill ambassador, our lively redheaded Boston Terrier, Doris. She wagged her nubby tail as we parked. Across the lot, 5 students stood near the school's auditorium, meeting each other for the first time, 6 feet apart, some in masks, some not. That's when I saw something I'd missed for a long time: smiles. Jerry and I had been sheltering in place 30 miles north in San Francisco in our home in the city's famed Castro neighborhood. When the lockdown came, our once busy streets became a ghost town. Closed businesses covered their windows in plywood, causing an outcry from some local politicians and residents who worried about the disturbing message of such visual blight. The precautions, however, were wise. Soon, those who did not secure their stores discovered their windows smashed. Vacated stores weren't the only targets. The local Walgreens was a lifeline for the community, and though it remained open 24 hours a day for medicine and food, it too was forced to board its windows. Neighbors sealed their shades. Only traces revealed life behind darkly secured edifices, like children's chalk rainbows on the sidewalks or anxious postings on hyper-local websites like Nextdoor. Siege mentality was further fueled by a phone app called Citizen, which turns police and fire scanner traffic into instant alerts. No one needed to peek outside their windows to determine why sirens blared. The news came to you instantly inside your bunker. With streets abandoned, those who remained outside were those who were already there: the unhoused, addicted, and mentally ill. The city's failure to intercede over the course of plentiful years was now on disturbing display. Open-air needle use, defecation, and despair confronted those who ventured from their homes. Filthy encampments crowded sidewalks, their existence an act of quote-unquote compassion, some city leaders argued. After all, homeless shelters were petri dishes for the spread of the disease. None of this was new. The pandemic just made it worse, or at least more visible. San Francisco, and especially the Castro, had been on a downward spiral for years. Dozens of businesses around us had recently folded, many due to the overall decline of brick and mortar retail, but a significant number of others felt unsafe or unwilling to absorb the costs and hassles of doing business here, in a neighborhood renowned as birthplace of the gay rights movement and of one of the few remaining so-called gayborhoods in the United States of America. People will argue over how it happened, but a loss in social norms had already taken a heavy toll on the Castro. Basic tenets of acceptable behavior were no longer agreed upon. Then came COVID-19. The Castro now sometimes looked apocalyptic. Mentally disturbed people, some covered in feces, wandered and shouted at invisible demons. These were human beings, not fictional zombies. Still, officials didn't help. The pandemic loosened the city's social fabric in other ways too. With so few on the road and lax enforcement, drivers largely stopped using turn signals and ceased obeying other traffic rules. More than once while walking Doris, we'd been missed by inches as cars barreled through red lights or stop signs. Other eroding norms were more curious than dangerous. Men in the neighborhood stopped wearing underwear with sweatpants and gym shorts, leaving little to the imagination. Maybe they've just run out of clean undies, a friend said. She soon realized that perhaps going commando was because people couldn't access laundry during the shutdown. Only when I noticed others doing errands in their pajamas did I realize that the lack of underwear was because people were going outside wearing the clothes they just slept in. It wasn't exhibitionism. Dressing had become as blurry as the days of the week. By decree, our faces became armored with masks. When people approached, it was impossible to determine if they were happy or threatening. Then one Saturday night, the Castro's troubles came into our home. A disturbed man in his 30s, his face wildly distorted by screams, climbed to the top deck of our building and threatened to jump and kill himself. 6 police officers brandishing rifles and pistols stormed through our home, apprehended the man, then dragged him in handcuffs through our bedroom and out to an ambulance. "You're hurting me," the man yelled. Officers never bothered to ask our names for a report. The incident was so insignificant, it wasn't even posted on that citizen phone app. So when we arrived at Stanford to deliver banana bread, those smiles from students were welcome. At home, everything we loved about the Castro, the people, the place, the culture, felt dangerous. On campus, we were suddenly transported to a realm of hope and possibility. Students represent the future, and they seemed grateful for a token of a homemade goodie. Doris sealed the deal with little terrier kisses for everyone. "You made my day," said one woman as she received her bread before wandering back alone to her dorm. "Actually, you made my week." Jerry and I remained wrapped up tight for our campus visit, never removing our gloves or masks. We still had on our city armor. Underneath, though, we smiled.
Oh, thank you. That was beautiful.
I love that. It's such a slice of life, and I mean, just the fact that you're a journalist, it really shows, and a novelist, and just
Well, thank you.
everything shows. And thank you so much. Do you want to stick around for a few minutes?
I'm going to stick around. I got to do my toast.
Okay, good. Good.
Thinking, what is better than banana bread and a pup? I mean, I can only imagine the absolute elation that people felt seeing that. Like that was an overwhelming image to me. Plus, there's nobody like a dog, even though, sorry, Benny got a little, maybe that's
I heard a little commentary there.
a little bit. So yes, have your toast, Scott.
Well, I want to do my toast. So, there are great independent bookstores out here, and we already talked about some of them. But since we're in Massachusetts virtually, I have to give my toast to An Unlikely Story in little Plainville, Massachusetts. What a wonderful little escape. My parents lived right around the corner from that bookstore, and we would go there all the time when I was home to visit with them. So I just love that place. So
Here's
cheers.
An Unlikely Story.
And Dani, last but certainly not least, you were actually one of the first people I came to be involved with the anthology. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know if it was an anthology at the time. And so we just talked, and I had, I knew you as a person who was not only a writer, but very mindful, very much, involved with self-care. And so we did an interview about, how do you take care of yourself during the pandemic? And now I think these questions are still relevant in a different way because, we're all getting vaccines, right? Like, tonight's the first night I'm having friends inside my house in over a year. And I'm freaking, my heart is seriously pounding. I'm like so anxious. So how do we do self-care during this time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just having this kind of out-of-body moment that you're asking me because I don't know, I mean, I really, these are, the word unprecedented has been so used and overused during the last 14 months, but, everything that we've experienced is unprecedented. I was listening to Scott read his lovely piece, and I was, my dog is lying here. I was thinking like and I heard Robin's dog, the creatures are happy, the creatures are happy because environmentally things are better. The creatures are happy because their people are home all the time. And we're talking to them a lot more. But Jen, what you're raising is I think that reentry and this whole idea, I don't feel like much language has been come up with yet that really captures it. I personally don't like the phrase the new normal, because there's nothing that's going to be normal, new or otherwise, about this world that we're re-entering, if we're even re-entering it, post COVID, if we're even post COVID, right? So there was a wonderful piece in the Times earlier this week that really got around by Adam Grant called, it used the word languishing, so like that we are, and I really, it resonated with me. Like, I'm fine, doing my work, everything's okay. I have lots of exciting things going on, but the feeling of not attaching joy or like that kind of real aliveness to those, or to plans, the idea of plans.
Right? Like, we're sort of like, just, I don't want to be too comfortable, because boom, that's when something happens.
Well, we've gotten very used to not being able to, like everything's a question mark. And then there's, you just said you're having friends over, re-entry. I have found for myself, I've been fully vaccinated for a little while. My husband has been fully vaccinated for longer, and he's a filmmaker, and he's been back on the set of his movie that had to be shut down due to COVID 14 months ago. And everyone is in hazmat suits, and 90 people are getting rapid tested every single day. And today is the last day. They're doing it. Not good. They've done it. They're doing it. But I've noticed that the couple of times that I've done something that I've longed to do, like, I don't know, sit in go to a restaurant that's doing social distancing and having dinner indoors with a couple of vaccinated friends, which is something we're supposed to be able to do according to the CDC guidelines. The anxiety that that other people represent is something that we all have, I think, collective PTSD about. And I think the more we acknowledge it, the more that is self-care. Like, the more we acknowledge it, then we're being kind to ourselves and saying, instead of saying like, what's wrong with me that I feel this way, just, this is what it is right now. And we're all kind of going through it, and everybody has people have different comfort levels.
Yeah.
There are people out there for whom the pandemic was just kind of a minor disruption, and other people who hit pause on absolutely everything, and other people who lost a great deal. There's so many levels to this. And I think that also means we need to be very mindful and very compassionate and kind to each other.
I think that's so true. And it's, how do you let the joy in? How do you let your guard down and let the joy in without, I don't know what the without is. It's like,
well, I grew up with, superstitious Jewish parents who were always, and grandparents who were, there's all this language around, the evil eye, and Kana Hura was the expression in Yiddish, or poo poo poo.
Lots of poo poo poo. Lots of poo.
Poo 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 poo.
Lots of poo.
Yeah, lots of poo. And, I very much did not want to live that way. And for the most part, don't live that way. If we really thought all the time about all the things that could go wrong, we would never get out of bed, ever. And my memoir Devotion is really kind of about that. Like, how do we find a way to live with the fact that life is uncertain, and live it to its fullest. Use that to live, not to be afraid. But I think that the pandemic has rocked that for for so many of us, because this invisible, there's this invisible uh, threat that can be in the most mundane of places. It can be in a grocery store, it can be at the dry cleaner, it can be, and it can be in a hug. Just started hugging people a little bit again, like vaccinated people. And I want to hug them. I've been hugging my family, but like hugging people I haven't hugged in a long time,
Yeah, friends.
friends. And it feels both wonderful and scary. Not
Yeah.
scary, just odd, strange.
Yeah, the thought of hugging my friends tonight when they come over, these are some of my best friends, and they're also grandparents. And so they've got a grandchild who is not vaccinated. And so we've talked a lot about how do how do you want to proceed? What's comfortable for you? And one thing I actually want to make sure I hit on with you is meditation and the mindfulness, and the how important has that become for you? I know it's always been important for you, but has it become more important with the pandemic and with, this re-entry time?
I think that the steadiness of it, the fact that every morning that's my ritual. I wake up, I make a cappuccino first, which is kind of counterintuitive, but I do. And then I sit for 20 minutes. I've done that for a long time, but I can't imagine this last year plus without what I think of really in meditation is that it's a daily reminder that again and again and again, I can begin again. I can start over. I can return to the breath. It's also enormously helpful and useful when it comes to um, a writing practice, because it's in a way very much the same. Being able to begin again, being able to like get up, stretch, stand on your head, go get a glass of water or whatever, and then every sentence is its own mountain to climb, its own new beginning. So yeah, I mean, it's always been important. I'm grateful that I already had the muscle. But I think a lot of people during this time have found resources. One of the great things about a silver lining really about this time is that what is available to people who don't live in major metropolitan areas, who don't live, in LA, where there's like a meditation studio on every corner and a yoga studio, within a mile of anything. Some of the best teachers in the world are available and doing free classes, doing Zoom classes. It's like the world has come to all of us if we know, just where to look, to just Google. There's a great platform called Live Kick that has some amazing yoga on it. And there's also Insight Timer that I've been using for years, that has guided meditation, so that if you can't sit quietly with the contents of your own mind, you can be guided through a gentle 15, 12, 5-minute meditation, whatever you're up for. And I do that sometimes too. I sort of sit down and I think, what do I need right now? Do I need 20 minutes of silence, which is my practice usually, or do I need to have someone guide me and gently walk me through this and put some good thoughts in my head as I start my day?
Well, I have to say, I just discovered your class, Inner Calm, and it's exactly what I need right now as a writer. And so I just want to tell people about that. And what platform is that on?
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Yeah, that's on Skillshare. And it's the only time I've ever done anything like that. They came to my house and they filmed me for a couple of days and created this hour-long class that's broken into segments that I really meant to be kind of a companion to people who are trying to write and looking for inspiration, looking for just little kind of spurs to, help them face the page.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's a nice sort of comforting,
Good.
thing. So I see we have a question, and I think we have a minute or two. Let me see what the question is. Okay, a question from Jennifer for Dani. What would you have done for a career if you hadn't discovered writing? Oh, that's a really good question.
I love that question. And I actually really have an answer, because there are only two things that have ever occurred to me as I could have done that. And one would have been to be a therapist. And the other, which came to me later, would have been to be a rabbi.
Oh, interesting.
Which really only came to me in the last several years, as really in the last decade or so, as I've made the acquaintance of some extraordinary spiritual thinkers, and just have realized how much of being a rabbi is both pastoral and also has to do with storytelling, has to do with, making meaning really out of stories. In a way, being a novelist and memoirist, being a therapist, being a rabbi, they're all very, they're very connected.
Yeah, I just was like in my head going, I wish Dani would write a novel about that, about, that focus on a rabbi as a protagonist. Are you working anything right now that you want to talk about, or?
I have been, this time has been actually, first it was just astoundingly difficult. And that feeling that I think has visited many, many, many people who create things, of like, who cares and why me, and I've got nothing to say. And it's also trivial when faced with what we're facing. And then finally, I just put my head down, because that's what I do. And, I knew I needed to just begin to find my way back to the page. And also Inheritance, I was still promoting Inheritance. I still am promoting Inheritance. So I'm deep into a novel, and closing in on a draft. And I also have something waiting for me when I finish that draft, which is that I signed on to adapt Sue Miller's most recent novel, Monogamy. I'm adapting as a feature film.
Oh, wow.
For the same producers who are developing Inheritance as a feature film. They're called Killer Films, and they're amazing women producers. They've done extraordinary films. They have a shelf full of Academy Awards, and it's like such a exciting thing for me to be able to try something new, like another form, and to be able to do that. It was my idea. I was reading Sue's novel in Galleys, and I just thought, I so see this movie. I see it.
Wow.
And I feel like I could adapt it, and I'm getting to do that. And then I have my podcast that's ongoing. I'm going to do another season. Season 5 is out right now. Episodes drop every Thursday, and then I will do a season 6 as well, because guess what? There is just no shortage.
No into the secrets.
There's no shortage of the most amazing stories. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dani. Let's make sure before Jen signs us off that you get a chance to raise a toast to your favorite bookstore.
I think I'm going to try to get in a couple too. My favorite local bookstore, my favorite local indie bookstore, which is 10 minutes from my house, is the Hickory Stick in Washington, Connecticut, a wonderful bookstore. And I would say, because this is a Massachusetts-based event, right? I would also shout out Brookline Booksmith, where I have had some of the most memorable readings of my career for the last number of books. Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, thank you again for joining us. And Jen, thank you again for having us. This was just really a wonderful, wonderful conversation and time. It It was really
Well,
nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, this was a great way to end the first day of the festival. As I said at the beginning, we still have a full day of events tomorrow, so I hope that people will be signing up and joining us. And so thank you to all of our readers. Oh, good. I'm glad people are coming back on the screen.
You're there.
So to everybody here, thank you for having this little cocktail party that we could use as our send off for the day. So
Yeah.
yes, alone together.
And I just wanted to repeat that our big news is that we've raised $40,000 so far for independent bookstores for Binc. And keep buying the book because we're going to keep giving money to Binc for as long as we can keep raising it. It's good seeing everyone, and have a good night.
You too. Have fun tonight.
Yeah, be safe, Jen.